Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 24. There's been multiple cases of people actually being eaten alive by an escalator. If you like to eat cereal, there's a 21 to 38% chance that you're also eating an Acarus mite. Supposedly, if you have Sanpaku eyes, meaning that there's white below your iris, it actually means that you're supposed to die young. Every time you feel very aggressive, your brain is set to kill for a few seconds. So in that 1 second, you could kill a human being. When getting laser eye surgery, you can actually smell the parts of your eyes being shaved down by the lasers. If you're a male, after you die, your loved ones can have a doctor electrocute your prostate, forcing you to ejaculate for your sperm. Female dragonflies often fake their own death to prevent rape. If you ever get burned by electricity, it will leave burn marks shaped like lightning on your skin. Many pets actually die because their owner dies unexpectedly and nobody comes in to check in on them in time.
Here are some things that you definitely needed to know. Dylan and Cole's spouse recently turned 33 years old, which means that they are older than Adam Sandler was in 1999 when they filmed Big Daddy. There are only 9 people alive on Earth today that have lived for more than 1 million hours. The percentage of Americans between the age of 30 and 39, which is my age group, who are married and own a home in 1975 was over 50%. In the year 2000, that number was 33%, and in 2025 that number is 12%, and in 2050 you'll be in the top 1% if you're married and own a house. When Steve Harvey was a kid, he told his 6th grade teacher that he wanted to be on TV. She apparently mocked him in front of the entire class and even told his mom it would never happen because he had a stuttering problem. And at some point after he had gotten famous, he started sending this teacher a new TV every Christmas. He wanted to basically make sure that she saw him as much as possible. Petty, but also, you know, go get it.
Morbid Facts, Part 763. Michael J. Fox was at the peak of his career when his life quietly turned into a tragedy. While filming Doc Hollywood at just 29 years old, he was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease, something doctors typically only see in elderly patients. He was so young that he thought the diagnosis had to be a mistake, but when specialists confirmed it, he went home, stared at the wall, and quickly fell into a deep depression, drinking heavily and hiding the truth from everyone for years, even his castmates. As the disease slowly destroyed his body, the world had no idea that while he was smiling and cracking jokes on the sitcom Spin City, his hand was shaking uncontrollably off camera. Directors had to constantly hide his symptoms by forcing him to sit during scenes or hold props with both hands. But Parkinson's didn't just steal his movement, it came with the threat of dementia, hallucination, and total loss of independence, a slow countdown he could do nothing to stop. Fox has since shattered bones from violent falls, undergone risky spinal surgery, and admitted that every day he wakes up with less control than the day before. The once energetic Back to the Future star has spent over 30 years watching himself fade in slow motion, and he said the moment he was diagnosed, "I felt my future get sucked out of the room." But instead of giving up, Michael turned his pain into purpose, founding the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which has now raised over $2 billion for Parkinson's research, making it the largest nonprofit funder of the disease in history by far. Despite losing control of his body, Fox might be the reason millions of others one day get theirs back.
2 hours outside of Mexico City, there is an island where the only inhabitants are dolls. Thousands upon thousands of dolls. Doll Island is the result of the former caretaker named Don. According to local legend, Don discovered the body of a little girl who had drowned in one of the canals of the island in 1951. After he retrieved the little girl's body from the water, he saw a doll floating in the water nearby. As tribute, he hung that doll up on a tree near his house. Over time, it was stated that Don would hear this little girl crying in the woods late in the evening, so as a tribute to her, he began to hang more and more dolls throughout the island itself. For the next half-century, Don continued to hang these dolls from every tree limb, every branch, even off of his home, all in an attempt to keep this little girl's spirit happy and keep her from haunting this island. So as you could imagine, the island is absolutely covered in dolls, but the strangest part about this is in 2001, Don died and drowned in the exact same area that the little girl's body was retrieved. Strange. Here's a photo of Don with one of the dolls on the island before he passed away. Some of those who have visited the island insist that these dolls have taken on a life of their own, and at night especially, they could hear little whispers from the dolls itself, or they could see their limbs moving. Could be wind, could be their voice box maybe, but all I know is an island infested with dolls has to be creepy, especially when there's spiders, ants, mold, algae growing on them. To this day, the remains of all of these different kinds of broken dolls remain on the island, as a very strange reminder to what happened at the island before. I'd love to know, would you go to Doll Island, and if you could spend the night, would you?
Creepy last words people said right before dying. Kathy, a registered nurse, said that she had been caring for a thin, pale woman in her 50s named Shannon who was dying of cancer. Over the weeks, Shannon started opening up about her life. She was raised Catholic and married young. Her husband worked double shifts so that she could go to college. But once she got there, she drifted away from her faith, calling the church oppressive. She fell in love with one of her professors and left her husband. The professor later left her for another student. When Shannon found out that she was pregnant, she decided to get an One afternoon, while speaking quietly, Shannon told Kathy that after all of that, she started practicing witchcraft. It made her feel powerful for a while, she said, like she didn't need God anymore. Then she went quiet, staring out the window for a long time, as if she regretted even saying it out loud. Kathy admitted that listening to Shannon talk about her past sometimes felt overwhelming. There was so much chaos in her stories, heartbreak, guilt, rebellion, but Shannon said that she had no regrets. One afternoon, she even smiled faintly and said that if she could live her life all over again, she wouldn't change a thing. One morning, Shannon asked, "Whose black dog is that?" Kathy glanced around the quiet room. "Ma'am, there's no dog here," she said. Shannon didn't answer. She just stared at the corner. A week later, Kathy said that Shannon told her something that sent a chill down her spine. "I saw a dark figure in the corner of the room," Shannon whispered. "And when it smiled, I saw teeth, big sharp ones, that glinted in the dark." Trembling, she said, "What drugs have you given me? I'm scared." Kathy assured her that she hadn't given her anything that could cause hallucinations. Shannon only stared past her and whispered, "It says it has a right to be here." A few nights later, Kathy found her sobbing. "They were right. I was wrong," she said. Then Shannon's gaze fixed on the same corner of the room. "Please, I'm just a woman. You wouldn't hurt me," she said. Kathy turned, but there was nothing there. Then Shannon's voice broke. "No. Please, no." The monitor flatlined. Kathy froze, unable to breathe. Shannon's eyes were wide open, staring at something that Kathy couldn't see. Kathy said that for a moment, the shadows near the wall seemed to shift. Something darker than the room itself was swallowing what little light was left. Then it was gone. Kathy said that she stumbled into the hallway trembling, gasping for air, and whispered to the doctor that stopped her, "She's gone. Shannon's gone."
Gruesome Facts You Didn't Know, Part 107. In 2013, a deaf man in North Carolina was brutally stabbed for using sign language. Terrence Daniels was walking down the street communicating with his friend when a local gang member mistook the sign language for gang signs and brutally attacked him. President William McKinley wore a red carnation as a good luck charm. Since he won his first political election, he was rarely ever seen without it. At a 1901 exposition in New York, he gave the red flower to a little girl. Mere minutes after giving away his good luck charm, he was fatally shot and died 8 days later. In 2012, Clemson University student Nathan Weaver was studying how to best help box turtles safely cross the street. He placed a rubber turtle in the middle of a busy road near the university, and what he found was shocking. 7 of the 267 cars purposely steered towards the turtle.
Extra Morbid Facts, Part 44. 18-year-old Kylie Montero thought she was starting her future, newly graduated, 11 weeks pregnant, and dreaming of naming her baby girl Eleanor. But instead, she walked straight into a nightmare. Her boyfriend, 22-year-old Gregory Groom, had a violent history she tried to escape, even hiding in a domestic abuse shelter for 3 weeks. But like too many victims before her, she went back hoping he'd change. On August 6, 2025, during a late-night visit to his house, an argument turned terrifying when Gregory threw her to the ground, pulled her hair, and started strangling her. Knowing something was seriously wrong, she sent one last chilling text to her sister. "My phone is at 4%. If I die, it was Greg." Moments later, he reportedly stabbed her in the neck and chest, killing not just Kylie, but also the unborn child she was excited to raise. Instead of calling for help, he spent hours digging a grave in his own backyard, and around sunrise, he shoved her body into the shallow hole like trash. For 13 days, Kylie's family begged for answers while Gregory acted innocent, until police finally found her buried behind his house. He was arrested and has pleaded not guilty.
This is why you should always trust your gut feeling. This is absolutely crazy, but is 100% true. In the late 1970s, a young woman worked in a hospital, and she was good friends with all the staff, knew their cars and everything. One day, this car was parked outside and she didn't recognise it, but she didn't really take that much notice of it. Until that evening when she was walking home from work, a car pulled up alongside her. It was the same car she saw earlier on. The guy opened his window and said to the young girl, "Would you like a ride? I'm happy to take you home." But she had a really weird gut feeling. She said, "No, I'm fine, thank you." But the guy kept insisting, no, let me take you. To the point where she was saying, "No, back off." After he drove off, she returned home that evening. But a few hours later saw the same car parked outside of her house and was terrified. So she decided to call the police and eventually he left. And this is where stuff gets crazy. A few years later, she was watching TV, an interview with a serial killer. This guy, the Yorkshire Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe. He was asked on the interview, "Did you ever get close to killing someone but actually didn't manage to?" He said, "Yeah, there was a girl I was following for a day but refused to get in my car. She would have been the next victim."
Holy! This is one of the most insane things I have ever read. Scientists are now growing mini human brains to power computers. And this whole thing is creepy as hell. Now, for starters, you know in regular computers we call it hardware. Well, the scientists in Switzerland that are currently carrying this out, they're calling theirs wetware. Bro, what? Oh, and it gets even creepier because these labs buy human skin cells from anonymous donors in Japan, and then through a series of highly complex processes and several months of growing, they turn those human skin cells into clusters of neurons they are calling organoids. Bro, I'm sorry, the naming is wild. Now, the organoids are these little white orbs that are essentially lab-grown mini human brains. Now, they're much less complex than the ones in our heads, but they have the exact same building blocks. Now, these scientists then attach these electrodes to these mini brains, and they can send and receive signals from them, which they read on a regular computer screen. Now, currently, they're very simple. It's just little signals here and there, but they want to get these mini brains to the point where they are essentially biocomputers, and they can learn, adapt, get smarter, perform tasks, kind of like AI, but the AI doesn't mimic our brains, it's our brains. And because of that, these little mini brains are unpredictable, and the scientists themselves have admitted that they still don't understand what the organoids do and why. Now, here is the eeriest part, because regular computers, they stop working, don't they? But biocomputers, they literally die. So the scientists say they can survive for up to 4 months, but before they die, they observe a flurry of activity from the organoids, which is very similar to the increased heart rate and brain activity which is seen in some humans at the end of life. Ain't no way! So, yeah guys, the future is fucked.
Let's talk about Skinwalkers. They are said to be powerful witches and medicine men. They can even change their form to any animal they desire, including humans. But they mainly change into deer, wolves, and coyotes. The scary part is they say if you see one, they can steal your face and even your last scream for help. You might think this is like a folklore or a tale. People actually believe these are real. The scary part is there's actual videos of people seeing oddly walking humans screaming help in the middle of nowhere. See, they say skinwalkers pretend to be humans in distress, and if they're calling out for help, they're just trying to lure you in.
Ashley.
That's when they take your life and use your voice and your look to catch their next gullible victim. A man's wife wasn't even home, but yet somebody was calling him to come downstairs in his wife's voice. If you want me to go out in the middle of the field, at least shapeshift into like Rihanna or Beyonce. I'm making a mess, but this look good. I'll be there in a minute. 30 seconds flat. Naked. Very naked. Maybe even Lizzo. Let's light this candle.
This photo shows 41-year-old Stephen Plattle marrying his 19-year-old daughter Katie, who is pregnant with his child. Katie had been previously given up for adoption after her mother Alyssa realized that Stephen was physically abusing their daughter. But in 2016, Katie, who's now 18 years old, wanted to reconnect with her biological parents and actually ends up moving in with them. But after some time, Alyssa realizes that her husband is acting very differently and is even starting to dress better. She decides to ignore this change in behavior until 2017, when Katie gets pregnant and the father is her father. Alyssa immediately divorces Stephen, and just 2 months later, he and Katie are set to get married and give birth to a baby boy. Both the parents attend the wedding and support the marriage until 2018, when Katie begins to see a different side of Stephen. But when she tries to end the relationship, Stephen suffocates their newborn baby and stuffs him inside of a closet. He then proceeds to shoot both Katie and her adoptive dad before turning the gun on himself.
Here are some maps that are going to change the way you see the world. Apparently, New York is the only state besides Hawaii where 100% of people live on an island, where the majority of people live on an island. Technically, we all live on an island in some form. Maybe not. This map reveals the best and worst places to live in the United States when dealing with natural disasters. I was born in Riverside County in California, which is just pure red. Thank you, earthquakes. And now I live in Jacksonville, Florida, where it's a tiny little red mark there. So of course, I just love to live in all the places that have disasters, apparently. It says some of the best places to live are New England and Ohio. So shout out to y'all. I didn't know that you can travel south from somewhere in Arkansas and get into every state that it borders, including the northern state. This map shows the number of 100-degree days on record since the 1900s. I'm shocked that Miami and Tampa have had one, maybe two more recently. I think there was one. It just gets so hot in Florida, but it doesn't actually get temperature hot. Los Angeles having 71 days does not make sense to me because oh, you know what? Okay. That's like downtown Los Angeles. I'm thinking the San Fernando Valley gets 100 all the time. Phoenix, I have nothing to say to you.
I bet you didn't know about these executions that went horribly wrong. Jesse Tefero, executed in 1990. Jesse killed a police officer and was sentenced to death by the electric chair. With the first jolt of electricity from the electric chair, a 6-inch flame shot out of Jesse's head. He was definitely still alive when this happened. Overall, it took 3 jolts and 7 minutes for Jesse to pass. Next is Jimmy Lee Ray, executed in 1983. He brutally murdered a 3-year-old and was sentenced to be executed by the gas chamber. 8 minutes after the gas was released, the people watching the execution fled the room. He was convulsing, gasping for air, started beating his head against a steel pole in the gas chamber. It was reported he let out 11 deep, gasping moans as he slowly choked to death. It actually later came out that the executioner was intoxicated. He didn't perform it just right, so that led to the agonizing death. Then there was Clayton Lockett, executed in 2014. He brutally ended the life of a 19-year-old girl and was sentenced to have the lethal injection. The Florida prison that executed him used their own weird homemade lethal injection recipe, and it didn't exactly work as intended. When Clayton was injected, he was fine for up to 10 minutes. Then he started rapidly convulsing and was even trying to speak to the paramedics on site. The execution was halted, but 40 minutes after the dose had been injected, Clayton had a fatal heart attack. Then there was Charles Warner, executed in 2015. He assaulted and brutally murdered an 11-month-old girl. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Except when the injection hit his veins, he didn't go peacefully. He started screaming at the top of his lungs that it was acid. He told the guards standing by, "My body is on fire." It took 18 minutes for him to pass from the lethal injection.
Yesterday we talked about the satanic idol from the Warrens Museum, but today we're talking about the Doll of Shadows. According to Ed Warren, this doll was created with the intent of causing harm through dark rituals. The face is made out of a papier-mâché material, while the mouth is fitted with a single human tooth on the inside. Black feathers are placed on top of the doll's head, while nails and animal bones protrude from the doll itself. The story behind it is a young couple of doll collectors pick up this item from an antique dealer, who practically gives it away to them. I mean, warning sign number 1. On the first night that the couple brings the doll home, they go to bed and everything is normal, until both of them experience a series of horrific nightmares. And when they wake up, it's claimed that there are scratches all over their bodies. The following night, they experience another series of nightmares. Except this time, they wake up with distinct claw marks all over their bodies. Fearing that things will only continue to amplify, they reach out to the Warrens. Ed goes to their home and they just say, take it, just take it. And ever since, the doll has remained in the care of the Warrens. Over the years, Ed shared the process of how this doll would be used. It's claimed that somebody practicing dark magic would first take a photo of the doll. The photo would be printed, and on the back, a curse would be written. That photo would then be sent to the victim. Through the gesture of the recipient opening the envelope, it was symbolic of them accepting the curse that was written on the back of the photo. Furthermore, once that recipient saw the image of the doll, that meant the doll could then be projected into their dreams. But none of y'all try to send me a photo with this doll and some scribble on the back. I'm not playing that game. Ed stated that the doll couldn't just be destroyed, since it acts as a vessel for the negative entity. So that brings us to, what item do you want to talk about next? A big thank you to those who recommended this topic on the last video. And aside from paranormal, I love all things true crime, spooky, unusual. So if you have any other suggestions on videos that you would like to see, please feel free to comment below.
This couple was killed in a very disturbing way. One day, a young boy went to an amusement park with his parents. They were riding rides all day and began to get hungry. So his parents went to get food and told him to wait at the table. The boy waited and waited, but they never came back. He began to worry and went to the place where his parents were getting food, but they weren't there. He then searched the whole park for them, but they were nowhere in sight. He began asking everyone if they'd seen his parents, but no one seemed to care. The boy then saw a game stand that was closed and decided to knock on the door. When he knocked, the door slowly cracked open. He then walked in and saw something truly disturbing. His mom and dad were nailed to a wall full of balloons dead. Their bodies were completely covered in darts. The boy then ran out and told one of the workers, and they called the police. When the police arrived, they had no idea what to make of it and had no idea who did it. The young boy was then put in a foster home, and not a day went by that he didn't think about how his parents looked on that wall.
This ride malfunction might be a symptom of a much bigger problem. This video shows the moment where the Atmosphere ride at Oaks Amusement Park in Oregon malfunctioned, leaving 28 people hanging upside down for 30 minutes. Hazen Hathorn was one of the riders on the ride, and a fun fact is that he doesn't have freckles. Those are all broken blood vessels that occurred from hanging upside down for so long. We don't know exactly why the ride malfunctioned just yet. There's still an investigation ongoing, but this is maybe a symptom of a much bigger issue that's happening. And that's the fact that in America, there's little to no regulations for theme park rides, meaning there's not really a standard for how often rides are maintained to be deemed safe. I literally just did a whole episode on this for the podcast where I talk about other theme park disasters that have happened throughout history. This picture is actually from a theme park ride test where the flume completely flew off of the ride, and that ride would go on to open and claim the life of a 10-year-old boy. And that's because the creator of the ride wasn't an engineer, he was just a hobbyist. But in America, if you can dream up a ride, you can make it. For instance, in Florida, parks with over 1,000 workers don't even have officials from the state inspect the rides for safety. Now, giving them the benefit of the doubt, no one died on this ride, and I'm sure it was made by engineers and not just some guy. If you want to hear about more theme park disasters that occurred throughout history because of our lack of safety regulations in America, you should check out episode 70 of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast.
Marlene Warren opened the door one morning in 1990 to be shot in the face by a clown holding balloons and flowers. More than 3 decades later, the case is finally solved. This happened in Palm Beach, Florida. All 3 of her kids were home when this happened, and they tried to save her and call 911, but she died 2 days later after the gunshot. But this has a spicy turn. It turns out the clown was her ex-husband's new wife. Her name was Sheila Keene Warren. After the shooting, she assumed a new identity to try to evade authorities and not be caught. This is Sheila Keene Warren's mugshot here for reference. The only thing, 3 decades later, that was the defining factor in this case was a strand of hair on a balloon. That single strand of hair matched perfectly with Sheila Keene Warren, and that's how she was arrested and caught. Sheila was arrested in September of 2017 for first-degree murder. She was arrested in Virginia, then extradited back to Florida. The trial process is long, and because of COVID, all of this got delayed more and more. In 2023, she was offered a plea deal, so she's serving 12 years currently right now. However, Michael was never charged in connection with his death at all. I'm not sure how that sits with me, but let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below.
He live-streamed his final moments on Facebook Live. 33-year-old Ronnie McNutt was an Army veteran from Mississippi. Friends described him as kind, funny, and deeply loved. But ever since returning from the service, he was struggling mentally. In 2020, Ronnie was dealing with a breakup and job stress. On August 31st of 2020, Ronnie went live on Facebook. It started off as a normal stream, and his best friend Joshua claimed that he would do this often as a form of therapy. As Joshua was watching the live stream, he almost immediately noticed that this time was different. Ronnie appeared to be heavily inebriated and despondent. At one point, he had even misfired a rifle into the air, and Joshua was starting to get very worried, so he tried to intervene, hoping that Facebook would just take down the live. Facebook refused to take down Ronnie's live because they claimed that there was no kind of violation. As the stream is continuing, Ronnie's phone keeps going off, and he ends up answering the phone, and it's his ex-girlfriend, and the two end up getting into a brief argument. Once the call is ended, Ronnie has a rifle in his hand and says, "Hey guys, I guess this is it," puts the rifle underneath his chin and ends his life. The New Albany Police Department were called to the scene, but they chose not to go inside of the home until they heard a gunshot. Mind you, the Facebook livestream is still going on, and you can see the officers in the background searching the scene, and Ronnie's phone is still going off. Screen recordings of the live were posted online by different users, and even though many websites tried to take them down, I'm sure they're still up to this day. Before Ronnie's final live stream, he made a post on Facebook that said, "Someone in your life needs to know that they matter, that they are loved, that they have a future. Be the one to tell them." This is your reminder to be nice to everyone. You never know what someone is going through. Always check up on your family and friends, and most importantly, take care of yourself.
This makes me sick because they couldn't prove that she was being abused. They just let her get murdered. It was the 2nd of October 2023 and police in Topeka got a distressing phone call. The call reported that there was a young girl seemingly unconscious at a petrol station there. She appeared to be injured, but nobody could really say for sure what on earth had happened. This little girl was adorable 5-year-old Zoe Felix, and she was just absolutely like the sweetest little girl you could ever imagine. Her loved ones said that she just brought a little ray of sunshine into their lives. But Zoe wasn't your average child because unfortunately she was having to be extremely independent because she was so neglected. When police raced to the petrol station, they didn't find the little girl injured, they found her dead. And obviously officers were at a race against the clock to try and unpick what had happened here. Now, Zoe had been living tragically in a homeless camp, which is just absolutely heartbreaking for such a little girl. There was this area where like homeless people lived. It was like their gathering. They were sort of living in tents there, and Zoe had been camping with her family. But this isn't just a case of Zoe's neglect going under the radar. It was very much a known thing, not only to members of the community, but also social services. Child Protection Services received countless reports about Zoe's well-being, with 6 of those assigned to be so serious they required further investigation. The year before, documents stated poor conditions in the home and possible substance use in the presence of a child. This was before Zoe was even in this homeless camp. It was actually social services, or the American equivalent of social services, who reported that she was living in a house covered in dog feces, and her basic needs weren't even being taken care of by her mum. Neighbours even told them that Zoe often wandered around the neighbourhood at a loose end, and she was dirty, she clearly wasn't being washed, she didn't look fed, and it was the neighbours that were all having to kind of like band together to A, report this to social services, but B, clothe her, wash her, feed her. And shockingly, Zoe's own mum had been arrested for driving under the influence while Zoe the child was in the car. But the mum was arrested and Zoe was just handed back to the family a couple of hours later. So just a month before Zoe was killed, her family were investigated again and deemed that their living conditions were fine. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't consider living in a tent in a homeless camp good conditions for a child. They were like, oh, it seems fine. There's no kind of proof that she's unhappy or not being taken care of. When Zoe's body was found, she was deemed to have been AR'd and then murdered. And it's honestly just sickening because this was from somebody she knew and looked up to. This was 25-year-old Michael Cherry. He was also homeless and living very, very close by to the family, and the family were apparently friends with him. She even called him Uncle Mike. And he actually tried to concoct some bizarre story to police when police tried to question him about this, lying that he'd seen another guy attacking Zoe, but then he ultimately had to admit that that was a lie because they had CCTV footage that proved this never happened. He finally admitted it. He said he had suffocated her with a pillow at the homeless camp. God knows where her parents were. Zoe's own dad had apparently just left her at the campsite with this Michael at roughly 1 p.m. and she was dead by 5:45. Thankfully, he was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences, but what do you guys think of this? Because I honestly feel like that family is just as to blame as the guy who actually did this, because who just leaves their child like this? Who abuses them and neglects them for that long?